Hi, my name is Sydney, and today I'm going to be ranking the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise from least favorite to favorite. Over the past year on my channel, I've gone through and reacted to every single film in the franchise, so if you want, go ahead and check it out. It's been a journey. So to kick it off, I'm going to start with my least favorite film in this franchise. My number 9 on this list is debatable whether or not you would consider it part of the franchise, but it's going to have to be A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 remake. This film, unfortunately, doesn't age very well. It's too stylistic for the time period. The story is really bad. Like, the parents, don't even get me started, but there's a lot wrong with this film. The only twist that I think that would have made it stand out to be different and more interesting would have been if they had made Freddy innocent, which they had kind of nodded to as having potential in the film, and then they just abandon it. Okay, let's get away from that remake that we all wish never existed. And going to my number 8 pick is going to have to be number 4, The Dream Master. I know that this film does fall as some people's one of their top favorites, but unfortunately it just didn't click for me. The storyline really drags and honestly just doesn't make sense to me, the way that it comes together. Freddy's defeat is still very confusing and kind of blah to me. All the ideas that were established in the third film right before it are just totally abandoned. The only saving grace to this film for me is that Kincaid and Joey come back for a little bit because they're such strong characters. And this film, to no fault of its own, just circumstantially, Kristen's recasting from Patricia Arquette to, is it Tuesday Night or something like that? Basically, the actress that replaced her. It's just really big shoes to fill, I think. So that adds as like another thing not helping this film. It's just not my favorite. Also, too, the way that those originals from 3 into this 4th film, the way that they killed them off, especially Kristen's death, to me was like, what? I don't know. I have a lot to say. Go back to my reactions if you want to hear more about what I said in the moment. Number 7 on my list is going to have to be number 6 in the series, Freddys Dead. This film kind of stands out in this series from the fan base, from what I've heard, as being particularly bad. And while it is, the things that kind of save it from being at the very bottom to me are, I love that we get more of Freddy's backstory in this film, and that more of the mythology about why Freddy is Freddy with the dream demons, etc., they're more developed in this film. And that's something that I think, for example, Dream Master is lacking on. It just kind of feels random. Whereas this film, it really feels like it's pulling from history and trying to like help us to understand backstory and mythology, which I find interesting. But overall, this movie is way too goofy. And in general, this film just feels like it has a lot of missed storytelling opportunities with the whole daughter thing. I don't know. There's just, within the characters as well, they're kind of like throwaway a lot of the time, it feels like. So yeah, this film, it's pretty bad. Number 6 on my list is going to be Freddys Revenge. You know what? I have not revisited this film since I watched it in my initial reaction, and I actually would like to. It still, when I think about the film, it still feels kind of convoluted, and I remember just the beats of the movie felt formatted the same as the first film, which just felt unoriginal to me. And because it was kind of trying to imitate certain beats of the first film without it being as strong, it just felt super weak to me. But then the more that I've sat with it, and having been a little more educated on the layered subtext of sexuality, it makes me really want to revisit it and absorb it in a new light. So for that reason, I can actually appreciate this film more, even more so, even though I haven't seen it a second time. So I would like to. And then having been a little bit more made aware of what those sort of underlying narratives are, it makes me think about the film in a different way, as far as like what is our main character's journey through this film is because originally I was kind of debating on whether or not he was trying to find his independence or his strength. And maybe so, but it's more so about, I think, based off of information from what you guys in comments or just looking it up online, it sounds like it's more about a journey of conformity in society and suppression and themes of that nature, which is so much more interesting and nuanced than a shallow viewing of it could be going into it, and myself just having expectations of like, okay, there's Freddy and some teenagers, what's going to happen? So I don't know. And for that reason, I'm not ranking it as low as I maybe initially thought I would have. Number 5 on my list is going to be number 5, Dream Child. This film is a lot stronger to me than the fourth film because at this point we're emotionally invested in Alice's character. That actress who plays Alice, her performance in this film is also a lot stronger. Her acting just feels better and a little more natural. This film also, once again, leaning into those themes that I tend to enjoy. It expands a little bit more on the mythology. It goes back to the themes that the third one brought in with, as far as exploring Amanda Krueger and who Freddy Krueger's mom is, and kind of tying that back in together, which I really like. And then on a random note, but that always kind of stuck with me, is that this film is really the only one where it feels like a character gets any true redemption out of the whole series, and that would be Alice's dad. In the fourth film, he's a huge deadbeat. He sucks. In this film, he's recognized, his alcoholism, and he's there for Alice, and he's actually supportive. So it's really rare and nice to see. Okay, now going into my top 4, these ones I feel pretty secure about. To be honest, my 5th, so Dream Child, Freddys Revenge, and kind of Dream Master. Honestly, depending on the day and the mood, they might switch what position they're in. But my top 4 are I feel pretty confident on this is how I feel. So my 4th choice is going to have to be number 8 in the franchise, Freddy vs. Jason. I know that this movie is not good, but let me explain why I like it. Overall, I think it's super fun. It's self-aware. It's full of fan service. It's pulled a lot from the other films referentially, whereas that's I think one of the reasons why I didn't like Dream Master is because it takes ideas that were established previously and kind of just ignores them. So I love that Freddy vs. Jason kind of pulls ideas from the past. And this is the only film where the lack of character development is not only acceptable, but probably is an advantage towards this film for me. This film is purely about embracing Freddy and Jason, rooting for them in different ways, and they are the focal point. So the humans who are the victims feel I don't really care about them. And so they don't waste my time trying to give us a bunch of backstory and trying to get the audience to super empathize with them. They kind of just are there, and that's okay. I think it's better that way. Overall, just a fun movie. Okay, top 3. If you know where my last 3 are, if you've done the elimination, then you might predict what's coming. My 3rd top favorite is New Nightmare, which is the 7th in the franchise. I am a ride or die Nancy. Therefore, I'm a ride or die Heather Langenkamp. I just think she's such an awesome final girl. So the fact that they brought her back so many years later in such a fresh and interesting way is awesome. This film is very bold and fresh. It's very layered, and it conceptually just stuck with me. This is one of those movies, along with 2, where I feel like I could watch it again to absorb it in a new sort of way. But overall, it just feels really strong storytelling wise, and it's engaging in a way that some of the ones in the middle start to lose me, and this one doesn't. It's just stronger. My number 2 choice gotta be Dream Warriors, baby. Once again, Nancy's back. She's stronger than ever, wiser than ever. These kids finally have a guide in this chaos. Patricia Arquette really grounds the Kristen role. This film, because 2, again, I want to re-explore it, but like it didn't have the Wes Craven touch, and back to 3, it really has that again. This film explores new ideas, whereas again, jumping back, 2 feels a little bit like a blueprint of the first one, just a little different, and this one feels totally new and fresh, but also keeps us connected to those same characters that we love, like Nancy. And then Freddy starts to expand a little bit as far as the, excitedness, craziness of the kills. But overall, the characters are super strong. Kincaid's a favorite. Also, I really liked the addition of Hypnosil as being a real life sort of tool for these kids to utilize. And to be honest, I do struggle with nightmares myself. I have stress dreams like almost every night. And I think about Hypnosil on the regular because I'm like, oh my gosh, if this was a real thing, I would be there. I'd be on that. Dream Warriors, though, it's good stuff. Solid movie. And, we're down to our number 1 choice. We know it. We love it. A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. This film is scary. It's very effective in the way that it utilizes Freddy within the film. The execution of it is just the pacing and the tension building. It's the only film out of the franchise that I really look at and go, this is scary. Robert Englund, in all of them, he's awesome. He is what makes Freddy Freddy. But in that first one, his performance is so iconic and just establishes such a, believable tone, which is the reason that the series was able to be continue, I think, with the studios and stuff, was because of his performance. But man, it is, that original film is just so good. It's one of my favorite scary movies of all time. Nancy is a strong, smart protagonist. The motivations and the exposition from the parents and stuff makes sense compared to the remake later. Because I'd seen, if you watch my reactions to all of the films, I have seen the first one the most, so I'm going to be biased because I grew up watching it. I've seen it countless times, and so inevitably in watching the next sequels, I am kind of subconsciously comparing it to that first one because it's just so good. So I really think that A Nightmare on Elm Street, then Dream Warriors, and then New Nightmare, it's pretty widely known. Those are like a great trio package of a trilogy. Are those probably a pretty predictable top 3? Yeah, of course. Probably. I mean, I know there's some of you out there who probably feel really strongly and passionate about maybe like Dream Master or even like Freddys Dead because of the era that you had watched it in your life, or that you're able to watch it and just absorb it for what it is. I don't know, but for me it feels like hands down, it's the top 3 are original Dream Warriors, New Nightmare. Like they stand out so much. It's been a blast going through this series. I feel very educated. I feel like a horror hole has been filled for me, in that a huge missing puzzle piece within my horror consumption has been filled. Yeah, it's awesome. Go Freddy. So yeah, moving forward into for subscribers or people who keep up with my content regularly, I have been sort of brainstorming more about how can I keep producing content more regularly. My reactions are the things that get the most views and the most engagement, but they're so hard to do consistently. And also with copyright regulations, like it's really hard to maneuver around that for how time consuming it is for it to either be taken off my channel like one of the Halloween reactions did, or just demonetized, which is pretty much this whole Nightmare on Elm Street series. So I'm going to be exploring more over the next month or so. Basically playing with reviews, playing with other subjects, answering sort of doing countdowns, like rankings like this. So, and then an occasional reaction here or there. So we'll see how it develops. It's still developing. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.